Hi, welcome back to another serger tip clip. Today I wanted to show you how to make a tassel using a serger 3-thread rolled hem stitch. You could also do this using a chain stitch, and I have two different examples. The way they look is pretty close to each other, so it doesn't really matter which technique you use. Either one works perfectly fine. So whichever you're comfortable with or your machine does best is fine. On this one, you may remember when I showed how to make this little zippered bag, and I added a tassel on this that's a little bit bigger. And I posted a photo of my tote bag with a little mini tassel on the inside of the zipper pocket. And I had a few people say, how did you make that? So that's what we're going to show you today. Okay, so here is the little mini tassel. It's probably a little less than 2 inches, maybe 1 3/4 inches. So I thought that was a good size. I didn't want anything bigger and bulkier than that for the inside of the zipper pocket. So you can see it just makes it super cute, and it's a nice little finishing touch for the inside. Let's go over the setup on the machine first. I'm doing this tassel with a 3-thread rolled hem stitch. So I am set up for that. I have my right overlock needle in place. I have thread in my right needle threading root. I have 2 threads in the upper looper and 1 in the lower looper. And let me tell you what those are. In the lower looper, I have a 12-weight variegated decorative thread. And in the upper looper, you can see on my upper looper thread stand that I have my thread palette on. And I have 2 threads in that because I like to blend the colors together for this if I want to show a few different colors in something. So I have a 12-weight and a 30-weight. One is a blendable thread, it's variegated, and one is a solid thread, serger cone thread in my needle right here. And because I have those 2 threads on this machine, I bypassed the threading port and I went through the little bracket for the upper looper with a thread cradle. Now, if you are curious about how to do a thread cradle with multiple decorative threads and how to use a thread palette, I will refer you back to one of my very first serger tip clips using the thread palette, and that will go into depth explaining that. But the rest of this is all set up. I've disengaged my stitch finger. I have my stitch length down to 1, and this is one of these things that when you're blending threads, it's always kind of an experiment and a surprise for how it's going to come out. So I'm going to close up the front of my machine. And again, when it comes to setting your stitch length, that's a matter also of experimenting. I like to use slightly heavier decorative threads. I think they make a really beautiful chain and a tassel. Now, at the beginning of this thread chain, I had my stitch length on about 1.5, and I thought it looked a little on the loose side. I didn't like it as much, so I shortened it up down here to 1, and that's what I like, and that's what I'm going to use. So there's really nothing to this whole technique other than running off a few yards of this. And because it's a small mini tassel, all I really need is a couple of yards for the whole tassel construction. Now, I've run off this chain, and I probably just have for this one probably less than 2 yards, but I think that's going to be plenty. Before I press this little piece that I'm going to use to wrap around the tassel, I just want to show you the difference of what it looks like once it's pressed. Here it is unpressed and right off of the machine. So you can see how nice and smooth it is. So I'm just going to give this a quick press, and then we'll be ready to start the next part. When I was looking for something to wrap for the right length of the little mini tassel, I was looking around in my sewing room, and I realized my little needle case was exactly the length that I needed. And I just want to show you again. On this bag, I used something that was about 4 inches long. Whatever you wrap your thread chain around will be pretty close to the finished length of your tassel. And one other thing while I have this on camera is that I used the chain stitch to create this one with the same types of threads in the chain looper. And you can see the difference between a 3-thread rolled hem and the chain stitch appearance is pretty negligible on either tassel. So again, whichever one you want to use, or if you don't have cover chain stitch capability on your machine, you can just use the 3-thread rolled hem setting to create that thread chain. Okay, I'm just going to put this piece, I doubled it over, and you'll see what we'll use that for in a minute. And then you're going to start wrapping, and you do have to hang on to everything for a second here. And I just wrap it around, not super tight, just normal. Okay, I think that's probably a pretty good amount to wrap. So I'm just going to give this a little clip down here. And I am going to take this piece that I did crosswise and just loop it through the loopy side, just like this. Hold it, pull this off. And can you see our tassel starting to come around just like this? And I'll tell you what to do with these little ends in just a minute. And so now I need to wrap it. And so what I'm going to do is about maybe about a half an inch or 3/8 of an inch down from where I folded it. I'm just tightly wrapping more of my thread chain around it till I have it to the thickness that I want. And I think that looks pretty good, just like that. And I am going to take a little double-eyed needle, or if you have a bodkin, that'll work perfectly fine too. Just like this. Let me give it another wrap. And I'm just going to work this right under that wrapping, right through, and then I'm going to put this end right through the double eye, pull it through, and my thumb is kind of obscuring a lot of this action, just like that. I'm going to pull it pretty tight, just like that. I can trim off everything, and since I don't have my tote bag finished yet that it's going to go on, I can't show it on that, but I will post a photo as soon as that's done. So, and then this I can tie right through the zipper pull. And what I like to do on these raw edges is I find that the best way to secure those so that they don't unravel is to use like a little dab of super glue or Gorilla Glue, anything that dries clear, and just put some paper under it. Don't leave it on a table or anything that you don't want any residue to get on. But just use a little bit of the super glue or Gorilla Glue, whatever you have. And I also do that on the ends that are raw down here. I do not clip any of the little loops. I think they look perfectly fine the way they are. And that's the way I finish that. Now, if you also want to add a little bead, which I did on the other tote bag, you can do that too. And but again, whatever you wrap your thread around is going to be the finished length of your tassel. So you can see how this little needle case worked perfectly for the size that I needed. So it's a fun little thing. It's great. You can make it any length that you want and have fun with it. Thanks for joining me today. And if you have any questions, send them along, and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can get your notices for when I post a new tip clip. See you again soon.